Hi, it's Mike from Esri Canada. In a previous video, I showed how to deploy the coronavirus response solution using the ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool. I'd now like to show you what's involved with wiring up the solution to use your own authoritative data. I'm going to use data from the City of Moncton's Open Data site, and I'll be using a combination of ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Online. There are many apps that are part of this solution, which I've already deployed here in my ArcGIS Online organization. One of your responsibilities in your COVID-19 response may be to keep the public informed on the status of government or city facilities that are impacted by the pandemic. So let's take a look at a couple of these apps that we're going to be working with. One of the key apps that we'll use here is the Community Closings app. So this is an app that the public would use to get information about what the status is of different government buildings, public places, and so on. It's built with the web app builder for ArcGIS, and it really has one main widget in it. That would be the locate place widget that we can see here. So within the app, we can see we have two different layers that are going to be used: public places, government facilities, and we're going to wire the application up to use our own data from the City of Moncton under the government facilities. You can see as well in the search settings, we have different search parameters set, what our minimum distance is, maximum results, and the public would use the drop down to search for all public places or the government facilities. Now to feed the app itself, we're going to need a specific layer, and we saw those layers that were outlined in the application configuration. So looking at the layers here, there are many types of layers that are available. The views are what are exposed to the public, and then we have the public places and so on feature layers that are hosted feature layers that we'll be working with. So the public places is what I'll work with in this case when we're looking at our community closings. For instance here, we'll see that there's government facilities and landmark facilities. So I have a lot of flexibility of how I want to populate these layers based on how my data is organized. So if we want to look at the layout here of what the schema is for the fields, we'll see there's many fields available that have a lot of information that we could populate. Now your data may not have all of this information. You can leave some of these fields. I like to leave all of them, and then I can just hide them if need be for when I'm exposing the rest of the information in the applications. Now two of the main fields here will be the facility type. And we can see here this has a list of values, or what we know as domains. So there's a lot of already prescribed values here, and you're going to want to edit these based on what your facilities will be, and we'll see how I do that shortly. You also want to see the status here to see open, closed, scheduled to close, impacted. You may want to change these based on how you are managing your facilities that you're working with. So once again, a lot of flexibility here on how you want to change this based on how your data is going to be organized. Now the one last tool I'll look at, we've looked at the underlying layer, we've looked at how the public will relate to the data in the Community Closings app. The other application that you're going to want to work with in this case is the Public Place Manager app. So this app here, if we want to look at how it's configured, we'll see that it has the ability to use a group as the inputs to the actual application itself. So we can see here there's three different layers: government facilities that we've mentioned, public places, and three other ones. Now depending on how my data is organized, I may just have one layer, I may have 5 layers, I could have one layer and 5 views based on these individual layers that we're going to be giving the public information about. Now for our purposes here, we're just going to work with government facilities. But if we go back and we see the group that we're working with in this case, that'd be the Public Place Manager group. We can see those 5 layers are here, and well, they're actually maps, but they contain each of those layers. So I may not be storing my medical facilities in a specific layer. I may not be doing that for school districts as well. Maybe I just have that in the schools layer. We'll put medical facilities in the government layers. Lots of ways that you can work with this application. If I go back to the Public Place Manager application in my content, and we configure the app, now we'll see that there's only going to be 3 different layers available to me that I could work with. The government facilities, public places, and schools. So I've just removed those items from the group. They're not going to be able to be used by the Public Place Manager, and the Public Place Manager will really be used by our staff to update whether the government facility is open or closed, or if any details have changed on it, such as the hours, or if we want to add information about it, a website, and so on. So this is the information that we have available to us to use, and we'll start to configure this against our own data next. So we'll go back into our content next, where we're going to take a look at that public places layer, because that's what we're really concerned about using with our data that we have from our authoritative data, which we're going to be using from Moncton. So keep in mind, going into the public places hosted feature layer, when I want to visualize, or not visualize, but look at the data itself and look at the fields, I've got all of these fields available to me here. And as we took a look at some of these here, like facility type, we saw that there were domain values and that we're going to want to configure for ourselves. So let's go in and explore the data that we have and how we're going to add some fields and modify what we have here. So I've downloaded from the Moncton Open Data site points of interest. Now, the points of interest are a rather robust data set. Lots of great information here about the category of the feature. We see, just scrolling through here, we see there's education features, sports, municipal, health, emergency. So they've got everything wrapped up into one large data set. For our purposes, I'm just going to select out things that would fall under like a government facilities things, structures and locations. So municipal, transportation, health, and utilities. I'll use that to feed into my government facilities there. Keeping in mind, there's lots of ways I could do this. I could put this all into one layer and have that as matter that I'm working with. But since I want to get it wired into the coronavirus response as quickly as I can, I'll put it into the different layers that we have available to us. So I've been working with this data a little bit. I'm going to use some of the tools in my geoprocessing history to start. Select layer by attribute, points of interest, create a new selection where the category is equal to municipal, transportation, health, or utilities. This will make my selection. From this selection here, since I'm going to work with that layer, I'm going to make that a layer from my selected features. So I have a good starting base to work with here. I'll rename the layer as well to government selection, just so it's clear in my contents what I have. And then when I look at this attribute table, we'll see that I've got all of these, all my layers available to me here. I'll clear all my selections in both. And if we take a look here, I've just got the 22 selected features on my map. We can see the attributes available to us here. So these fields aren't all the same as what we have in our coronavirus response public places layer. I've got some additional fields that I want to carry over, and I want to make sure that these utilities, municipal, transportation, and health are all values that can be in that domain list. Plus, I'm going to add the address French, the postal code, the name French, and the subcategory as well. So I'll have a little work to do to add those values into my public places layer. So the quickest way that I can do this is go into that public places layer, and I can edit the facility types, list of domain values that are available to me here. So I'll just go through and delete the existing ones, since none of these are fitting what I want to work with. I have 4 values that I have, so I'm just going to keep these, and I will update those values to new codes. So I'll just jump ahead here as I will just copy and paste those values in, and we'll see the new codes and what they're going to look like. So I've added those those domains to my list values that we have here. I've done it manually. I could have gone through the REST API. I'll put an article in the comments section that show you how to do that. Or I could have even used an ArcGIS notebook to change those domain listed values as well. I'll save those changes to my values that I have here, and then I'll make one more change to the data sets that I have available. I'll go back to the table, and I'm going to add in 4 different fields that I'd like to have in my data set as well. Fields for the subcategory, the name in French, the address in French, and the postal code in French. Just like before, I'll jump ahead to get this done quickly. So when we scroll over now, after I've added those fields, we see subcategory, name in French, address in French, and postal codes, and that's added into the bottom of my field list as well. The next thing we'll do is jump into ArcGIS Pro, and we'll append our data into this feature layer here, and that'll get us wired up for our coronavirus response applications. So I'm back in Pro. I've got my government selection layer. Let's go out and get that public places layer that I've been working with. So I can get to that from my portal and my content, and I'll add this to the current map. Now when I get the public places, I'm just going to move it down a little bit here. I'm going to be interested in working with the government facilities. That's there that I'm going to be putting the information into. I'll look at the attribute table, and we can see I've got those fields just like I saw in ArcGIS Online. So what I'll do next is with our append tool, which I've worked with previously, I can get to it from my geoprocessing history. I'll open it up. I'm going to make sure my input layer is the government selection layer. My target data set is that government facilities layer. And we can see here I'm already lining up the different fields that are going to exist and map across each from the target, from the input that is to the target. So the name is going to go to the name, the facility type is going to go to the category, the full address is going to go to the address, and so on. That facility type will come in handy because that's where I have the domain list. So I'll run the tool. This will take a second to run. This is great. I'm working in ArcGIS Pro against that hosted feature layer, and we'll see the results in a second here. So this is what I'd expect. I've got new symbology. I'm going to take a look at this in my government facilities table. This has all been populated here with those fields. Anything where there wasn't anything is just a null value. Creation date, and so on. I've got my subcategories, the French names, postal codes, and so on, if they existed, have gone in, and that is going to allow us to get that information into our data set. So the data is there. What I might want to do, I'll just do a quick sort here based on the facility type. I can see the types that we have here, and we also have our subcategories as well. So if our subcategories, maybe all the parking garages are closed. Now I have the ability to work with the apps to change these, but perhaps I want to do this in ArcGIS Pro. So I'll calculate the values for the parking garages to close. So what I'll do quite simply here is I'll just do it visually here from the table. Select those parking garages, go into my geoprocessing history, open this calculate field, base it on my government facilities status based on the SQL for the status is equal to closed. I'll run this. What it's doing now is it's finished the calculation. If I clear my selection, I can see those points are now all red based on that changing the domain value that we have here in the list. So that's how I can quickly get those values into the field. I can into my layer. Also how I can start changing those values in Pro. I'll show you how we work with the data in these apps next. So looking at the two apps that we've been working with previously, we'll start with the Community Closings app. This would be the app that citizens would use to get information about whether different facilities are open, closed, or impacted by the coronavirus. So picking any point on the map, I could just pick an estimated location, type in an address. It'll by default, based on my settings, do a search 2 kilometers around this location. There's only one government facility in this case, Dieppe City Hall, which is closed. We're getting all the different bits of information from the data set that we have in that feature layer, and I can have an information that links to more information here about what's going on, including this closure of City Hall. When we start playing with the slider a little bit or moving the location, we'll start getting more information about the different facilities that might be open, closed, or impacted by the coronavirus. So that's how a citizen could use this information. If we're going to maintain it, we showed you how you could do some work in ArcGIS Pro, but the Public Place Manager will allow any member of your organization to manage the data as well. So for instance, picking that government facilities layer, perhaps I have new information about Moncton City Hall. I can get that point. It's no longer open, it's closed. So I can just use this editor here to make this a little bit easier for me to use. I can fill in data that I might have been missing before. This is a great chance to put data that you might not have had in here into the data set. And I can even take some comments right off the page here to indicate that City Hall is now closed. So as I save and change that, we'll see that's closed. The record is updated here, and we can even see the point on our map here for Moncton City Hall has been changed to closed with the information here, including telephone number to call and a link to the website. So that's how we can work with those different applications with our data. No matter how you're working with the coronavirus response solution, these tips will help you configure it with your own data. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Thank you.